The birth of Samson. The Israelites were under the oppression of the Philistines for 40 years because of their disobedience to God. During this time, an angel appeared to Manoah's wife, a woman who had been unable to have children, and announced that she would give birth to a son. The angel instructed her to live a holy life. She was not to drink wine, eat unclean food, or cut her son's hair, because he would be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from birth. This son was to begin delivering Israel from the Philistines. In due time, Manoah's wife gave birth to Samson, and as he grew, the Spirit of the Lord began to stir within him. Samson's feats of strength. Samson was gifted with incredible physical strength by God, but he often used it impulsively. His story is marked by his conflicts with the Philistines and his personal weaknesses. The lion and the riddle. On one occasion, Samson killed a lion with his bare hands. Later, he found bees had made honey in the carcass and took some to eat. During his wedding feast to a Philistine woman, Samson posed a riddle to the Philistine guests about the lion and the honey, wagering clothing as a prize. When they could not solve it, they coerced Samson's wife into revealing the answer. Furious, Samson killed 30 Philistines to pay his debt and left his wife. Revenge and escalation. Returning later to find his wife had been given to another man, Samson caught 300 foxes, tied their tails together with torches, and set them loose in Philistine fields, burning their crops. This act enraged the Philistines, who retaliated. Samson struck back with great force, killing many Philistines. The jawbone of a donkey. The Philistines once surrounded Samson to capture him. Empowered by the Spirit of the Lord, he broke free from his bindings and killed 1,000 Philistine men using only the jawbone of a donkey. Samson and Delilah. Samson's downfall began when he fell in love with Delilah, a woman from the Philistine valley of Sorek. The Philistine leaders bribed her to discover the secret of his strength. After several attempts and lies from Samson, he finally revealed that his strength lay in his uncut hair, a symbol of his Nazirite vow. While Samson slept, Delilah had his hair shaved off, and the Lord's strength left him. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and imprisoned him in Gaza, where they forced him to grind grain. Samson's final victory. During a great Philistine celebration in honor of their god Dagon, they brought Samson out to mock him. Samson, now humbled and repentant, prayed to God to restore his strength one last time. With his hair beginning to grow back, Samson stood between two central pillars of the temple and pushed them apart with all his might, collapsing the structure. He killed more Philistines in his death than in his life, dying alongside them. Samson and Delilah's meeting. After years of conflict with the Philistines, Samson found himself in the valley of Sorek, where he met Delilah. She was beautiful and captivating, and Samson quickly fell in love with her. The Bible does not detail Delilah's initial feelings for Samson, but her willingness to betray him for money suggests her loyalties lay elsewhere. The Philistine leaders saw an opportunity. They approached Delilah with a proposition. For 1,100 pieces of silver from each of them, she was to discover the secret of Samson's strength so they could subdue him. Delilah's betrayal begins. Delilah began her quest to learn Samson's secret. Using her charm and persistence, she asked him directly, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." But Samson, aware of the danger, misled her. The first deception. Samson claimed that if he were bound with 7 fresh bowstrings that had not dried, he would lose his strength. Delilah relayed this to the Philistines, who provided the bowstrings. While Samson slept, she tied him up and called out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." Samson broke the bowstrings with ease, and his strength remained intact. The second attempt. Delilah grew more persistent, accusing Samson of making a fool of her. This time, he said he could be subdued if tied with new, unused ropes. Again, she bound him while he slept, but when the Philistines arrived, Samson snapped the ropes as if they were threads. The third lie. Samson told Delilah that weaving his hair into a loom and fastening it would weaken him. Delilah followed his instructions, but when she tested his strength, he easily freed himself. The truth revealed. Delilah grew increasingly frustrated. She accused Samson of not truly loving her, saying, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when you won't confide in me?" Day after day, she pressed him, and Samson, weary of her nagging, finally gave in. He revealed the truth. "No razor has ever been used on my head, because I have been a Nazirite set apart to God since birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me." Recognizing she now had the truth, Delilah lulled Samson to sleep on her lap. She called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. With his hair gone, the Lord's strength departed from him. Samson's capture. The Philistines seized Samson, gouged out his eyes, and took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze shackles and forced to grind grain in prison. Samson, once Israel's mighty deliverer, was now humiliated and powerless. Samson's redemption. While imprisoned, Samson's hair began to grow back, symbolizing the slow return of his strength and his renewed commitment to God. During a grand Philistine celebration honoring their god Dagon, they brought Samson out to mock him. Blind but determined, Samson prayed, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines." For my 2 eyes, guided to the central pillars of the temple, Samson braced himself and pushed with all his might. The temple collapsed, killing thousands of Philistines and Samson himself. His final act of strength delivered a devastating blow to Israel's enemies. Themes and lessons. The story of Samson and Delilah teaches profound lessons about the dangers of compromise. Samson's repeated indulgence in his desires and disregard for his calling ultimately led to his downfall. The cost of betrayal. Delilah's betrayal serves as a cautionary tale about misplaced trust and the consequences of greed. God's redemption. Despite his failures, Samson's repentance and final act of faith demonstrate God's willingness to use even flawed individuals to fulfill his purposes.